Today on New England Living, we'll visit one of America's oldest bookshops with a legend of the industry. And we'll meet up with one of Boston's fastest rising artists for a look at the latest in urban pop art. Plus, we'll get a behind-the-scenes look at a local innovation lab redefining the future of food. It all starts right now on New England Living. New England is full of adventure. I can't believe you guys are letting me do this.
Up and away.
Look at that. Oh, you just did your first takeoff.
Join me as we discover the people and places that make us so unique.
This is it. You can't find it anywhere else in North America.
I mean, does it get any better than this? Love the place you call home with New England Living. Thanks for joining us today on New England Living. I'm your host, Rachel Holt. Leading off today, we're heading to downtown Boston for an inside look at the famous Brattle Book Shop with its current proprietor and renowned antique book dealer, Ken Gloss. Ken, Brattle Book Shop has been a fixture here in Boston for nearly 200 years. What's the history of the store?
Well, the history goes back to the 1800s, but for the reality of what it is now, my father was getting married in 1949. The Brattle Book Shop was going out of existence. My mother had $500. They bought half interest in the Brattle Book Shop. Obviously, it worked out.
What made you want to carry on this tradition?
Well, it's actually interesting because I've always loved the books. I mean, I grew up with them. My parents say my first word was book, and I love talking about books, to say the least. The problem is when you ask me about books, it's not getting me to answer, it's getting me to stop answering. I can just go on and on and on, and most people will put up with it, and most people enjoy it.
We are surrounded by books and books and books. Where are you sourcing all of these books from?
Almost 95% of the books come from people's houses, going out to houses. It's like being Jim Hawkins on Treasure Island. We see amazing things, you meet amazing people. Most people who like books, collect books, read books, have books, are interesting people.
When you travel to these different places to purchase these books, what are you looking for?
Anything we can sell is what I'm looking for. I mean, we're a generalist bookstore. We specialize in not specializing. One day I might go into a library and it might be some very rare, expensive books from the 14 and 1500s. The next day I might go and someone has 2,000 mystery paperbacks or science fiction from 20 years ago. Yes, we're always looking for the thing we haven't seen, the customer that might want something and has been looking for it. But many times what surprises you is what you don't think you're going to see, and then it shows up in an estate or library, and it's something new.
I cannot possibly guess. How many books are in the shop?
Well, we've never had an exact count, but there are probably somewhere around 100 to 150,000 books in the shop. And it also depends on, well, if I go out tomorrow and buy 20,000 books at a house, probably in a week there'll be 20,000 more. We have 2 floors of general used books. We have a 3rd floor with rare books and autographs and manuscripts. We also have outside tables at $1, $3, and $5, all day long, all year long. We cover the whole gamut.
Throughout the 3 floors here and outside, describe the selection of books we can find.
It's almost every subject, every area of every field that you can possibly imagine. But depending on what we got yesterday and what estate we went to, it's constantly changing, which is, I think, one of the reasons people come in. Our outside tables, in a way, I look at them as a big monster, and you have to keep feeding it. And what you feed is you shovel books into them. Otherwise, the store would just burst. We buy thousands of books every week.
Every time I've passed by your bookshop, I've always wondered this one thing. How long does it take to set up the outside each and every day?
Their carts that are on wheels are all in the aisles of our 1st floor. We open a side door and people start rolling out the books on the carts. And that whole process takes 20 minutes or so.
Some of the books outside sell for as little as $1.
Yeah.
And then you have books inside that are upwards of $100,000. Is it safe to say that there's a book for every single person in here?
That's one of the sort of things that makes this store unusual and fun. It depends on 2 things: what you're looking for, and I guess to some degree how much money you have.
We're here on the floor of rare and antique books. First of all, what makes a book antique?
Well, usually people say 100 years old or more, but it's more what the subject is. A book can be incredibly rare. There may be one copy in the world, but if there's nobody who wants it, it's not valuable. The person who wants it might be rarer than the book. On the other hand, some of the books that get good prices are popular books that a lot of people treasure and hold, and because there's a lot of demand, the price can be quite high, even though you can get it if you can pay the price.
As far as trends that you're seeing, is there anything that's really popular right now?
It's always changing. I mean, what people were buying 20 years ago is different than this year, and you see the changes in time. But the one book that we have a constant ask for is Make Way for Ducklings, which you can buy new off the common at $20, or we had a first edition of Make Way for Ducklings for $20,000. We sell both.
Of all of the things that you've done, I think personally, one of the coolest things is you've been a question on Jeopardy.
Looking back on it now, it was a number of years ago, but looking back on it, we got a call once. They asked what a Gutenberg Bible would be worth. The Gutenberg Bible is the first printed book, 1456. It's the establishment of Western education in a way. About 6 or 8 months later, my wife and I, we like to watch Jeopardy. Then this question comes up.
Antiques Roadshow veteran Kenneth Gloss put a $25 to $35 million price tag on a first edition Bible printed by this man. Joe.
Who's Gutenberg?
Yes.
We had absolutely no idea that that was why they called or that was coming up. So you never even know when people are calling, who's going to be calling.
One of the things that you offer here is a decorating service. How does that work?
We get movies. We get advertising, stores, we get restaurants, real estate companies that want to show off a house, or people moving into a house. There are lots of bookshelves, they want to get them filled up with books. If it's a movie, maybe a time setting, you can't give a 1950s movie a 1990s book. During COVID, we had a lot of people want backgrounds, not pictures of background, we were selling the books.
What makes Brattle Book Shop so special?
This type of store, the large, old general bookstore in an inner city, is a dying business. Rent has gone so high that old bookstores have just one right after the other gone out of business. So the fact that we're even hanging on, regardless of all of the internet, regardless of online selling, regardless of all of that, people still like to shop. They still like to come in. The nice thing about used and secondhand bookstores, even the largest of us, are tiny. I mean, on the scale of American business. And they're so small, they tend to take on the personality of whoever the owner is. They all have a different feel, they all have a different touch, and this is what ours is. Every day is a thrill, and that's why I keep going. I've decided that I'm going to live forever so that we keep going and so on. But literally, I plan on doing this until I can't.
Coming up after the break, we'll meet a local muralist gaining national attention for her artwork when New England Living returns after this.